Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories. Missiles over Hormuz. U.S. warships fending off an attack as tensions with Iran flare despite that ceasefire.
Trump administration says it's coordinating with international partners amid that deadly hantavirus outbreak aboard a cruise ship. President Trump's comments on the outbreak.
Next week, President Trump making his long-awaited trip to Beijing for a meeting with regime leader Xi Jinping. The Iran war, trade, and human rights all on the table. We have expert analysis from David Jiang, host of David on China.
And a federal trade court strikes down the Trump administration's 10% global import tariffs. Why the panel says the tariffs are illegal and what the administration may do next.
In Canada, a simple flag-raising ceremony draws unexpected pressure from China. What prompted the mayor to call police?
And moms have a special role in the family, and we'll be speaking with an expert about some of the challenges and gifts that come with that role and how to make the most of it in your family.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Today's Friday, May 8th. And in today's top news, shots fired in the Strait of Hormuz, testing the U.S.-Iran ceasefire. A trio of U.S. warships fending off a series of attacks from Iranian missiles, drones, and attack boats.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has President Trump's reactions, plus the president's comments on his China trip just happening next week.
Central Command says 3 guided missile destroyers came under attack while sailing through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday.
They should not have done that today. We thought they might. We didn't know, but we were prepared. They shot missiles. Every missile was knocked down. Every drone was knocked down. And the people that shot it are no longer with us.
The U.S. Military Command says U.S. forces eliminated inbound threats and targeted Iranian military facilities responsible for attacking U.S. forces, including missile and drone launch sites, command and control locations, and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance nodes.
They trifled with us today. We blew them away.
CENTCOM reporting that no U.S. assets were struck in the exchange, adding the U.S. does not seek escalation but remains positioned and ready to protect American forces. The president saying the 3 destroyers successfully transited out of the Strait of Hormuz with no damage. As for the ceasefire, the president saying it remains in place.
The talks are going very well, but they have to understand if it doesn't get signed, they're going to have a lot of pain.
President Trump remarking that Iran wants to sign a deal a lot more than he does. The president yesterday also discussing his upcoming trip to China.
We've had a great economic time. China's been great for us economically, but not for other presidents. But we've done very well with China.
President Trump was asked about Christian pastor Ezra Jin, imprisoned since October.
I've gotten a lot of people out of different countries, including China. People that were hostages or held. So we'll take a look at that.
Ezra Jin is the founder of the large underground Zion Church in China. He was arrested in October last year in a nationwide campaign targeting unregistered house churches. President Trump's trip to Beijing will take place on May 14th and 15th. The Iran war, trade, Taiwan, rare earth minerals, and advanced semiconductors are some of the expected key points of discussion. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And for analysis on the Iran war, we're now joined by Captain James Fennell. He's a former director of intelligence with the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet. He's also co-author of the book Embracing Communist China, America's Greatest Strategic Failure. Thank you for joining us this morning, Captain. I'd like to please start with your analysis of this attempt by Iran to attack these U.S. destroyers in the Strait.
Well, good morning, Carrie, and thanks for having me on. I think what we saw here is just how much we cannot trust the Iranian regime's words. I mean, they said that they were in a ceasefire, and then what did they do? They unleashed, multi-layer attack on 3 of our Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. So that's one fact. Another fact is the fact that the 3 destroyers from the U.S. Navy were departing the Strait of Hormuz, meaning that they had been in the Gulf. So what I think Americans should understand and viewers should understand is that U.S. Navy warships are actually going in and out of this Taiwan or Strait of Hormuz into the Gulf and out at will. Now, the Iranians chose to attack in this incident yesterday, but they had obviously had to transit in, and they had not been attacked. So I think there's a couple of things there to take away, which is obviously the threat of mines has been exaggerated. We're not hearing any really confirmed reporting. There's been a couple of reports of possible mines way outside in the southern portion of the strait in the last 72 hours. But in terms of the U.S. Navy, we haven't heard anything about that. In terms of the actual attack, I think it's very instructive to note that while we had acquired or taken out a lot of their capabilities during that first portion of the Epic Fury, there's still some residue anti-ship cruise missile capabilities that they have, obviously the drones, and then these fast boats or mosquito boats. But they're not really a significant threat to the U.S. Navy. They may be for commercial shipping still at this point, but what the CENTCOM report said was not only did they take out the drones, the missiles, and the boats that were attacking our ships, but then they went back to Keshem Island and Bandar Abbas, the main naval port there at the top of the Strait of Hormuz, and took out locations where those anti-ship cruise missile launchers were at, where drone launchers were at, command and control nodes that have been maybe reconstituted or reset up in haste and ad hoc fashion, and also there are any surveillance radars that they could put up temporarily. So those are being taken out. So they're being treated again. And I think President Trump's comments make it clear that he's trying to make this ceasefire work and trying to make a deal. And at some point, I think he's going to say, hey, I've done everything humanly possible, and we're going to have to take another course of action.
And what might that course of action look like in your view, or what would you recommend be the course of action? Because clearly, as you point out, just a blatant violation of the ceasefire.
Right. Well, I think at some point, I mean, the president's got the trip to China here in, just 6 days. So I think he's probably not going to unleash another round of Epic Fury before he goes into China. So I think he's going to try to use diplomacy, his negotiation tactics, to try to get the Iranians to come to their senses and to open up this waterway for the international community before he gets to Beijing, so that he can have this discussion with Xi about what we've done to make it secure, and that how we do not want Iran to have nuclear weapons. But if he comes back from Beijing and this is still in the same situation, and Iran is still sniping and controlling, they stood up this Persian Gulf Strait Authority, which is now an expanded control area that they say they own the entire Strait of Hormuz. It's complete contradiction of the United Nations Convention Law of the Sea, which they're not a signatory to, but it's a violation of just everything that anybody accepts about international waterways. And so President Trump's probably going to have to seriously think about fulfilling what he promised that he would do, which is to strike their power facilities, turn out the lights, and really ratchet up the pressure. And also to put some pressure on their ability to store oil. I think that's another area where Iran thinks that they can wait this out by, filling up old tankers. And I think that'll be another target area.
And you mentioned, of course, the trip to China and how, if things aren't resolved in a timely enough fashion, that might be the sort of tipping point, getting on the other side of that trip. Where do you put China in all of this?
Well, I think President Trump wants to make a deal also with China in terms of the economic situation, to come to some kind of resolve that would allow America's economy to continue to benefit, to buy us some time to get out from under the Chinese control of rare earth elements and other technologies like AI. So there's a lot to be discussed there. There's still issues like fentanyl and opioids. There's a lot to be discussed, but I think one of the areas is, President Trump has asked China to assist with negotiating with the Iranians to help them, back off and become a responsible actor in this situation and benefit from some kind of an agreement. And so far, Xi has not demonstrated any intent to do that. He is, if you read Chinese press every day, they're continuing to place blame equally at the United States and Iran, even after Iran violates the ceasefire and starts shooting at our ships.
Well, a lot will be revealed with his meeting next week and what the ripple effect might be with Iran. Appreciate all of your analysis this morning. Captain James Fennell, thank you.
Thank you.
China, meanwhile, has ordered several of its refineries to ignore U.S. sanctions on Iranian oil. This follows new sanctions from the Trump administration in what it describes as the home stretch of its economic pressure campaign on the Iranian regime. NTD correspondent Jason Blair has more on that.
China has ordered companies to disregard U.S. sanctions targeting Iranian oil. On April 24th, the Treasury Department put sanctions on one of China's largest teapot oil refineries, along with 40 vessels and shipping firms tied to Iran's shadow fleet. This was part of the Trump administration's economic pressure on the Iranian regime.
This began with the order last March from President Trump on max pressure. And the way to think about that, we were running a marathon over the past 12 months, and now we are sprinting towards the finish line.
The core reason for the sanctions is to cut off Iran's primary source of income, therefore preventing Iran from funding terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, building its nuclear program, and increasing its military capabilities. On Monday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said China is buying the vast majority of Iran's energy.
Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism, and China has been buying 90% of their energy, so they are funding the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
The U.S. has not officially responded to China's move, but Secretary of State Marco Rubio was asked about it on Tuesday.
There are options that we have. If you ignore our sanctions, you're going to face secondary sanctions, and I don't have an announcement for you on that today, but we don't do these things, for symbolic purposes.
With China attempting to block the sanctions, some analysts are saying the bid will have little impact. Su Tzu-Yoon, a research fellow at Taiwan's Institute for National Defense and Security Research, told the Epoch Times Beijing, while unwilling to appear weak, faces limited practical scope for retaliation in the international market. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
And as we have been reporting, next week, President Trump heads to Beijing for a meeting with Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping. To dive into the long-delayed trip, we're now pleased to be joined by David Zhang. He's host of David on China, which you can watch on YouTube. David, let's start with the Iran war. How do you think Beijing's trip will affect the war, and how will the Iran war affect the agenda with Trump and Xi?
Yeah, good morning. I think the prior meeting that happened before this trip with President Trump was meeting with Iran's foreign minister. And you see in the readout from the China-Iran meetings that it was clear that China's bottom line is supporting Iran's nuclear enrichment. So this is, I believe, a fundamental sort of understanding of what the CCP wants in the region, which is to have Iran continue to be a sort of a distractor / chaotic factor for the CCP. But also at the same time, we're not seeing any indication that it is trying to reduce the amount of support. Obviously, with President Trump visiting, they're going to start to show some signs of, let's say, we're not going to physically send ships with weaponry into Iran, but they're still going to be economically supporting Iran as we speak, and I think continue to do so. But maybe in the temporary sort of few weeks or even a month ahead that they will sort of calm down a bit. But in the long term, they want Iran to continue to be China's proxy in the Middle East.
And then how does the naval blockade affect China's benefit on this discounted sanctioned oil with Iran and thus the tension with the U.S.?
Well, it does matter to China to see the Strait of Hormuz open up again. I think China fundamentally wants to get to a place, or the CCP, where the strait is open, but Iran continues to enrich uranium. But at the same time, China does have a sort of a large reserve of storage of oil. So they can last a while if it really comes down to the dire situation, as they've been preparing for the Taiwan invasion. But over the long term, the price of refinery, price of especially the manufacturing and export sector is going to skyrocket, and that's no good. So I think China wants to find some sort of a common ground in this visit from the president and see if they can somehow get to a place where they can get the flow of oil back.
Now let's shift over to China's internal dynamics, and let's talk about human rights for a moment. President Trump said he will raise the plight of Hong Kong publisher Jimmy Lai. Some observers have said that human rights abuses, such as forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong and Uyghurs, it's so egregious that it actually represents the legitimacy of the CCP itself. It could actually be their Achilles heel because the crime is so heinous and the scale is so industrialized. Where does human rights fit into the agenda with Trump?
Yeah, as the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said in the press conference 2 days ago, that it is a crucial issue for their administration. I think the key here is to understand what the CCP uses human rights as a sort of a bargaining chip for. It's that in recent administrations before the Trump administration, there's been a lot of discussion to raise human rights issues in these meetings, and as I'm sure the Trump administration also does. But they always have this fundamental bottom line, the CCP, that is to say that if you want us to fundamentally get anything done, don't talk and criticize our record on human rights or try to stop us from doing what you accuse us of doing. This is because a lot of the CCP's internal sort of officials' promotion and rise to power came with persecution of Falun Gong, persecution of Uyghurs, and even just in general creating these apparatus such as the censorship and the firewall of censorship and other sort of censorship apparatuses. They came up with this to get power, that they had to be involved in these. So it's almost like they have this blood tie to these persecutions and human rights violations. And you mentioned Jimmy Lai, the idea of stamping out press freedom in Hong Kong is an achievement to certain CCP officials, and that's how they maintain influence and power within the party. So for them to give that up, you can imagine how hard that would be. But I do think that the Trump administration still has the key here. It is that I think Xi Jinping personally wants the president to back him up in this internal power struggle that's happening in the party right now.
Yeah, let's explore that a little bit, because that is something that in open Western societies is really quite foreign. And I'm always shocked and amazed when you bring us through it a little bit. But as I understand, Xi has purged some generals, and they are now facing the death sentence. And potentially that could be commuted down to life imprisonment. But help us understand how that happens. What are the dynamics at play? And you also mentioned that Xi himself is trying to sort of embolden his own position and use this visit with Trump to help him within these internal power struggles. What's going on?
Yeah, well, this is unprecedented in the sense that both were former defense ministers who are also at the same time holding titles of the members of the Central Committee. So this is reaching sort of a level where you see that they haven't reached before in terms of purging individuals and handing them down with such a devastating sentence, so to speak. The reason why I say it's devastating is because what they're saying this time, contrary to previous sort of purges of corruption, which, by the way, corruption is never the main issue, is that they're saying even after the 2 years death with reprieve, that they're still going to be spending the rest of their life in prison with no parole. But something interesting I just recently found out about these two generals is that there's a line which indicates that it doesn't mention they give up the idea of trying to raise another lawsuit. Obviously, lawsuits in China don't really matter, but trying to appeal. What this tells us overall is that there is a vice chairman of the Central Military Commission called Zhang Youxia. His investigation is directly tied to the downfall of these two generals, as these were associates of him in previous military ranks. And so what they're trying to do, or at least the Xi Jinping camp is trying to do, is build a case against the downfall of Zhang Youxia, which, by the way, after a few months of so-called leaking nuclear secrets and economic corruption, we still haven't gotten the results of those investigations on Zhang Youxia. And what at the same time is happening is the anti-Xi factions are also targeting individuals who are close to the Xi Jinping camp. So there's sort of a dual administration running the show in China right now. And I think this is, again, where I mentioned Xi Jinping needs the president's visit to sort of buy some legitimacy back into his stand in the party right now.
So much at stake, and the casual Western observer would not know any of that. We appreciate you breaking it down. David Zhang, you can watch David on YouTube, David on China. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And still to come, President Trump's global tariffs facing a legal blow.
Yeah, federal trade court ruling the administration overstepped its authority.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration is responding to the deadly hantavirus outbreak aboard that cruise ship carrying American passengers. U.S. officials preparing a return flight for passengers and monitoring possible exposure.
Introducing the Quest-Wise Soothing Herbal Eye Patches. It comes with 30 pairs and can be used to help combat tired and strained eyes. The natural herbal formula provides a cooling, minty, and refreshing effect that stimulates natural tears and awakens your tired eyes. Placing the eye patches around your eyes helps to reduce dryness and massages acupuncture points. They can be worn while reading, studying, using electronics, and provide hours of long-lasting relief.
Today's seniors are enjoying life more than ever before, and part of that comes from the independence of driving.
However, car insurance for older drivers becomes more expensive the older we get.
Just because I'm a senior, and maybe you are too, do we really have to pay outrageously high insurance rates? Well, the answer is no, we don't.
When was the last time you checked to make sure you're paying the lowest available rate? Well, maybe it's time to give your car insurance a tune-up, just to make sure your rates are running properly.
You change your oil, you change your tires, well, maybe it's time to change your car's insurance company.
Are you paying too much for your auto insurance? If so, you're just throwing your money away.
So the only way to really know if you're paying too much is to call the number on your screen.
1-800-952-5196. 1-800-952-5196.
You'll speak with a licensed insurance agent. They may have an insurance plan that could lower your yearly premiums by hundreds of dollars.
Seniors can save money on their car insurance.
So call right now and find out just how much money you might be able to save.
Come on, call now.
You may be able to save a lot of money, maybe hundreds of dollars a year. Just call the number on your screen and speak with a licensed insurance agent.
Yes, it is possible for seniors to save on car insurance. You could lower your premiums by hundreds of dollars a year.
As a responsible driver, you always check your gauges, right? And you check for other cars and pedestrians. You check your oil and you check your mirrors.
Well, now is the time to check on your auto insurance rates. You need to make sure that you're not paying more than you need to. Call the number on your screen right now.
1-800-952-5196. 1-800-952-5196.
When they learn something new and you can just see in their faces, it's such an incredible moment. It's those moments that are my favorite.
Welcome back. The U.S. is now monitoring American passengers tied to that deadly hantavirus outbreak aboard a luxury cruise ship in the Atlantic.
President Trump says he's been briefed on that situation. Here's more about his reactions.
An international effort is now underway to contain the deadly hantavirus outbreak tied to the cruise ship MV Hondias. Countries are working to repatriate passengers and track possible exposures. President Trump says he has now been briefed on the outbreak and says officials are studying the situation closely.
It's very much, we hope, under control. It was the ship, and I think we're going to make a full report about it tomorrow. We have a lot of people, a lot of great people studying it. It should be fine. We hope.
The World Health Organization says 5 people are confirmed to have contracted the virus, with 3 additional suspected cases linked to the ship. 3 people have died in the outbreak, including a Dutch couple and a German national. Health officials continue stressing the overall public risk remains low. Spain says passengers arriving in the Canary Islands this weekend will not leave the ship until the plane that will take them to their destination countries is ready.
They will arrive in an area that is completely isolated and cordoned off. They will board vehicles that are isolated and guarded and will arrive at an area of the airport that will be completely isolated. They will board the planes and leave.
Spanish officials say the United States has agreed to send a dedicated plane to repatriate 17 Americans aboard the ship. Spain says British officials are also working toward a repatriation flight for passengers from the UK. Meanwhile, health departments in Virginia and Texas say they are monitoring residents who recently disembarked from the ship. though none are reporting symptoms. An Oregon doctor who treated sick passengers aboard the vessel says several patients became seriously ill in a short period of time.
Over 12 to 24 hours, it became clear that there were a number of people sick and that they were getting sicker. And the fear with hantavirus is you can go from seriously ill to critically ill very, very quickly.
State officials say a small number of additional Virginia residents who were probably exposed could be identified in the coming days.
And a federal trade court has struck down President Trump's 10% global tariffs imposed earlier this year.
The three-judge panel ruling 2-1 that the administration exceeded its authority when imposing the tariffs without getting congressional approval.
The court also issuing a permanent injunction blocking the government from collecting the duties from Washington state and two companies that brought the lawsuit.
Judges say the administration failed to identify the specific economic conditions required under the law to justify the import tariffs.
The tariffs under the Trade Act of 1974 took effect in February after the Supreme Court struck down separate tariffs imposed under emergency powers.
The Trump administration is expected to appeal the ruling and could move to replace these tariffs with other instruments.
Now to Alabama, where the leader of the Southern Poverty Law Center pleads not guilty on behalf of the organization during an arraignment hearing in federal court.
The group was charged with defrauding donors by failing to disclose that there was money paid to informants inside extremist groups, allegedly to stoke violence. NTD's Arlene Richards has more on that case.
Brian Fair, the interim president and CEO of the Southern Poverty Law Center, or SPLC, pleading not guilty on behalf of the center Thursday. An 11-count indictment names the organization as the defendant in the felony case and not Fair himself.
6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering.
The group is accused of using over $3 million in donor funds to pay informants within extremist groups, such as the Ku Klux Klan, to stoke racial hatred and concealing these payments through shell companies. For example,
the SPLC was paying a member of the leadership group that planned the Unite the Right protest in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 that resulted in the death of 1 person and injured dozens more.
He says the SPLC paid that person approximately $270,000 over the course of 8 years. In a statement after the hearing, the center's CEO said, "The charges against the SPLC are provably wrong. They are based on inaccurate facts and a misapplication of law. Our informant program was successful in accomplishing its purposes. Threats and attacks were prevented, criminal activity was stopped, and information was gathered to dismantle the efforts of hate and extremist groups. There is no question that the information the SPLC shared with law enforcement saved lives." In total, the fines for the 11 charges could be nearly $2 million, but no individual is being sought to serve prison time. The investigation is ongoing. The center's attorney said he expects to file motions in the case next month on a number of issues, including the possibility of a vindictive prosecution. Both sides agreed the trial would last for up to 7 days. The judge set a trial date for October 5th. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And a major drug bust in Southern California. Federal authorities say multiple arrests during a crackdown targeting gang and cartel-linked drug trafficking networks. Authorities also saying millions of dollars worth of narcotics were seized during that operation. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more from Los Angeles.
Federal agents swarmed MacArthur Park on Wednesday as part of what officials are calling Operation Free MacArthur Park, a major crackdown targeting drug trafficking in the area. Authorities say the operation led to multiple arrests and the seizure of millions of dollars worth of narcotics.
I kind of had an idea as soon as I saw the vehicles what was going on. I think it was a good thing.
That's what one resident said after the DEA, LAPD, and several other agencies raided businesses and homes tied to what officials describe as an open-air drug market in the MacArthur Park area of Los Angeles. Officials say the investigation targeted gang and cartel-linked trafficking networks, including members tied to MS-13 and the 18th Street Gang. Authorities say agents also recovered methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, firearms, and cash during raids across South Los Angeles Angeles, the San Gabriel Valley, and Calabasas. Officials say they seized over 40 pounds of fentanyl worth up to $10 million during the operation.
Are you shocked at that amount?
I'm not shocked at that number because you just walk these streets and you see that the disease of addiction is out there everywhere on every corner. And something needs to be done.
Federal authorities say the amount of fentanyl seized has the potential to kill more than 9 million people. Officials say several suspects are now facing federal drug trafficking and conspiracy charges, which could carry sentences ranging from 10 years to life in prison. In an area long known for drug activity and homelessness, residents say they hope the crackdown will improve safety around the park.
To keep our streets safer and cleaner and to save lives, because a lot of bad things happen around here.
Residents say they're hoping this crackdown finally brings lasting change to the neighborhood. Reporting from the city of Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
And thanks to Christina for that report. Now to Texas, where Governor Greg Abbott is directing the state's higher education board to issue a cease and desist order against an unauthorized Muslim university.
State officials say Texas American Muslim University at Dallas was never granted permission to operate as a university or offer degrees in the state.
The state's accusing the school of unlawfully promoting itself as a university while advertising STEM degree programs and online enrollment.
The Richardson-based school describes itself online as the first university in the U.S. offering STEM degree programs combined with mandatory Islamic study courses.
State officials warning the school could face legal consequences if it does not comply with the order.
Abbott posting on social media that Texas will not allow illegal educational institutions to operate in the state.
Coming up, the U.S. is preparing to impose restrictions on Chinese visas unless China accepts deportations of its illegal immigrants. More on what this means just ahead.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
When we first met Todd, he was singing a song, and I was like, wow, look at this kid with the biggest smile.
Todd's a joy.
Yes.
Todd's really is a great joy.
And you.
Learn about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
When I arrived in the U.S. at 19, I struggled to find job opportunities without a high school diploma. My name is Ariel, and my entire life changed when I took a chance and I got my high school diploma at age 22. Everything I have, my education, my career, my marriage, I owe to the Adult Literacy Center and my teachers. They were with me every step of the way, helping with my English and math, making sure I pushed through all the challenges. Oh my goodness.
So Ariel, we made this yearbook for you. It has notes from all the people that are here. Your achievement has set an example for so many students. Most importantly, your daughter.
Education was the key that unlocked all my opportunities.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person. And I really dug into mental health. I start my day with a 20-minute workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. He won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
Welcome back. Just 1 week before a high-stakes visit to China, Washington is warning it will restrict Chinese visas if it doesn't take back its deported nationals living illegally in the U.S.
Now, the move comes only days before President Trump's scheduled trip to Beijing next week. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more on that.
The Trump administration's preparing to start sanctioning visas from China. It's over Beijing slowing its acceptance of deported nationals. This information was first made known by Reuters, but later confirmed by a State Department official to our sister media, the Epoch Times. The official said on condition of remaining anonymous, quote, inaction by the Chinese government will jeopardize future travel for law-abiding Chinese citizens. If these visa restrictions do go in place, it's unclear who will be the target exactly. The official also said that China refuses to fully cooperate with the U.S. to take back its citizens, calling it a breach of Beijing's international obligations and responsibilities. And the issue is expected to be discussed during President Trump's trip to China next week, where he'll meet with CCP leader Xi Jinping. Now, in early 2025, China accepted around 3,000 deported nationals from the U.S., but that has since slowed. The U.S. official says that over 100,000 Chinese immigrants are in the U.S. illegally. Over 30,000 face final removal orders, and of those, over 1,500 are detained and awaiting deportation, many linked to other criminal cases. Now, this isn't the first time the Trump administration has sanctioned visas over these issues. South Sudan, Laos, and Venezuela all faced visa restrictions for refusing to accept their deportees. During the Biden administration, the illegal crossings through the southern border rose to unprecedented levels.
At this pace, the full fiscal year will see encounters of illegal Chinese immigrants 2,300% higher than the rate just 2 years ago. That there is a serious national security concern, and we should be looking closely at individuals coming from communist China, the United States' greatest adversary on the world stage.
Reducing illegal immigration has remained a core tenet for President Trump after returning to the White House, including visa revocations and stricter vetting on immigration. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thank you, Jack. And the trial of a man accused of opening a Chinese police station outpost in New York City is now in full swing. FBI Special Agent Devin Perry, who closely investigated the case, testified before a jury.
What did he say about how this outpost was established? And what do prosecutors say is Beijing's broader plan to expand its global influence? NTD's Flora Hua was there in the courtroom. Here's that story.
This trial involving an alleged Chinese foreign agent has now entered its fourth day. Earlier during the trial, we saw evidence presented by federal prosecutors showing defendant Lu Jianwang allegedly taking orders from a Chinese police officer to set up an overseas Chinese police station in Manhattan. According to prosecutors, these communications mainly took place on the Chinese messaging app WeChat and were documented by the FBI. According to FBI Special Agent Devin Perry's testimony, in early 2022, Lu Jianwang flew to China and met with an individual tied to China's United Front Work Department. The CCP uses the United Front Work Department to build influence outside the party and advance its agenda abroad. Agent Perry testified that the individual proposed establishing an outpost for the Fuzhou City police station. After Liu agreed, that individual connected him with a director at the Fuzhou City police station. In February 2022, Liu returned to New York and launched the police service station through his hometown association called Changle. Here's the kicker: Liu is originally from Changle, a district of Fuzhou, before moving to the U.S. Now I'm taking you to Chinatown in Lower Manhattan, where the Changle Association allegedly hosted the New York branch of the Chinese police station. During the trial, videos were presented showing Chinese consulate officials in New York giving speeches inside the Chinese police station. Liu also admitted that reports on the station's work were shared with the Chinese consulate. The station opened for several months before shutting down. The FBI raided the office in late 2022. Liu is accused of acting as an unregistered agent for the CCP. Now behind me, the building is where the Changle Association is located, and you can see the name, the American Changle Association, written in Chinese. And U.S. authorities have called this matter a national security threat, comparing its seriousness to the FBI setting up a police station in Beijing. If convicted on all counts, Liu Jianwang faces up to 20 to 25 years in prison. Reporting from New York City, Flora Hua, NTD News.
Thanks to Flora for that report. And a flag-raising ceremony in Canada is drawing attention from an unusual source. Turning now to Amsterdam, just across the river from Detroit, where the mayor says he received a warning from China's consulate.
The mayor says the message warned him to stop supporting the spiritual practice of Falun Dafa. He then turned it over to police and says it's the first time a foreign power tried to stop him from saying what he believes is true. Here's more on that.
I, Michael Prue, Mayor, on behalf of the town of Amherstburg, do hereby proclaim May 13th, 2026, Falun Dafa Day in the town of Amherstburg.
Falun Dafa, also known as Falun Gong, is a spiritual discipline based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. May 13 marks the day the practice was first introduced to the public in China in 1992. And it was Amherstburg's 5th flag raising in 5 years.
We wish you a very solid month. I hope you can take your message across this beautiful country and make sure that people understand that your cause is just, your organization is wonderful, and you are helping and serving so many people. Congratulations.
Prue then shared something more. He said a letter arrived after last year's flag-raising ceremony, claiming to be from the Chinese consulate in Toronto. The Chinese Communist Party has persecuted Falun Dafa since 1999, and Beijing has been documented pressuring foreign officials who speak out in support of the practice.
I got a letter purportedly from the embassy in Toronto of the Chinese government warning me to stop supporting Falun Dafa. I have never been told by a foreign authority or anyone in Canada to stop saying what I believe is true. This was the first time. I was taken aback and I was a little angry. We phoned the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and they came and they took the letter.
But Prue didn't back down. He said the entire town council stood behind the proclamation.
Maybe I'll get another letter, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that you are here. What matters is that you are listened to. What matters is that your cause is just. And we will continue to support you going forward. I am proud to say that our council unanimously supported reading the proclamation, raising the flag.
Prue has spoken out against the persecution for nearly 3 decades.
For 27 years, I have stated my hope that one day the Chinese government will come to its senses and recognize what a wonderful organization Falun Dafa is and will stop the persecution. For 27 years, I guess they haven't heard me. I would continue to support your organization and the freedom that Falun Dafa brings to many people around the world.
NTD News, Toronto, Canada.
And as World Falun Dafa Day approaches, New York City is once again preparing for its annual Grand Parade, bringing lots of color, dragons, lion dancers, and more, and a message of hope and celebration.
Don't miss NTD's special coverage of the World Falun Dafa Day Parade. It'll be next Wednesday, May 13th, starting at 10:30 a.m., hosted by our very own Stefania Cox, as well as yours truly, Carrie Dunst, only here on NTD. Make sure to watch it with us.
And with Mother's Day approaching, many families are preparing for the big day.
It's a good opportunity to dive deeper into some of the gifts and the challenges of stewarding a child's life. Steph here is going to speak with an expert about that just ahead. Stay with us.
And a major honor for one of the most influential figures inside the Trump White House. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles is recognized at the Independent Women's Annual Gala in Washington. Stay with us.
Tired of struggling with that heavy leaf blower? Introducing the Bullseye Power Blower. It delivers a massive blowing force, and yet it's so compact and lightweight. Just lock and load the rechargeable battery for long-lasting runtime. The secret is the compact turbocharged motor with jet burst technology that blasts out 21,000 RPMs of airflow. Watch this. The sheer force propels this woman across the pool. Look, use Bullseye to blow up a huge jump house. Now that's power. Even blows snow right off your vehicle in no time. Turbo clean your porch in a flash or tidy up your dirty garage floor in seconds. Get it today for just $99.99. But wait, act now and get a $20 discount. So it's only $79.99. Plus, you'll get the adjustable extension tube, yours free. And it all comes with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-209-2313 or go to bullseyeblower.com. That's 1-800-209-2313 or order online at bullseyeblower.com. Order now.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is me? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, backpack kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Welcome back. A special honor for the White House Chief of Staff.
That's right. Susie Wiles receives the Barbara K. Olson Woman of Valor Award, and that's at the Independent Women's Annual Gala in Washington.
I have two daughters, grown daughters, and a grandson. And so I wake up every morning thinking about what I can do just in my little piece of the world to make the world and their lives better going into the future. That is enough to motivate me. Others may need more. I don't. That's all I need.
The Woman of Valor Award honors women who advance economic liberty, personal responsibility, and political freedom. The president of Independent Women calling Wiles a key force behind President Trump's political success and White House agenda.
President Trump congratulating Wiles, the first female White House Chief of Staff in American history. In a recorded message, the president praising Wiles and her role in his 2024 election victory and her leadership inside the White House. President Trump saying Wiles has shown courage and toughness while she went through her own battle of cancer.
And with Mother's Day approaching, many families are preparing for the big day, and it's a good opportunity to dive deeper into some of the gifts and challenges of stewarding a child's life. Joining us now is Dr. Jeffrey B. Rubin, a psychoanalyst, psychologist, and author, who integrates Western psychotherapy with Eastern meditative traditions. We're so glad to welcome you today, Dr. Rubin.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, let's begin with why so many mothers today may be feeling overwhelmed. They may not necessarily be doing more than women in the past, and yet there's so much burden that can come with it, often silently carried.
The resources that help women, women's groups, social media, also create a burden, a kind of unconscious burden, because women then feel like there's a one way to do it. They may not know it. They get conflicting advice, and it becomes very confusing and very burdensome.
And what can women do about that in an age when social media is so infused with everything we do?
I think they have to be open to as much information as they can, receptive to things that they don't know, but they also have to keep practicing trusting themselves, keep practicing going back to what works with their children, which may be different if they have several children.
Indeed. And what kind of practices do you recommend to reinforce that sense of trusting yourself and putting that in action when often onlookers may have different opinions, and obviously you're working in a team, often with your husband, who, your family as a whole. There may be lots of opinions going around.
Exactly. Just stopping, Stephanie, just stopping for a minute several times a day, checking in with one's body, seeing what feels right to the person. Just some yogic breathing, kind of calm, relaxed breathing, closing your mouth, breathing through the nostrils, longer exhales, just doing 12 breaths like that periodically throughout the day. That can help. Connecting in with trusted friends and advisors can also help. The solace that can bring can be very useful.
And in this era of social media and this hype around the perfect motherhood that women may be pulled into looking at on social media, mom guilt is quite common. What's behind that psychologically, and how can mothers manage it more effectively?
Well, I think as we said before, Stephanie, with all that information out there, many women feel there's one right way to do it, and they don't know it because they get conflicting advice. A child cries, soothe them. A child cries, let them cry it out. Sleeping arrangements, eating, gluten, it all becomes very, very overwhelming. And so they have to, again, sift through the information as best as they can, but then keep their own counsel.
And I love this aspect. You talk about how adult children can improve their relationships with their mother. And as Mother's Day approaches, I think that's such an apt question to ask. There's always something we can do to make it better, no matter how good it already is. So what's your take there?
One thing we do is to remember what aligns you, to remember what connects you, and to try to cultivate that. And then the second is, if there's things standing in the way, what do we need to do to resolve this? All we have is time, diminishing time. What do we need to do to make this less of a factor and for us to be more connected? We love each other, and how can we make this better?
Beautiful. Starting with the intentions there as the basis. What are some of the more common underlying issues that people can work through when it comes to their relationships with their mom?
You favored my sister, you favored my brother, you love them more, I wasn't good enough. And often there's a sort of faint hint of truth. The mother might have been critical to try to help the child achieve more, but then the child interprets it in their own particular way, which may or may not be what the mother intended. So sometimes just having frank discussions when mother and child or adult child are alone, and then asking, what were you hoping to achieve here? What do you want? Where do we share important values? How am I like you? To look for the overlaps and then to see if they can work through the potential conflicts.
And of course, mothering is a lot about serving the needs of others, and just looking now at what mothers really do need, but they're rarely asking for, and how a mother's partner and the family as a whole can support her in that.
Well, I was thinking of that in relation to what's the best gift we can give mothers this Mother's Day on Sunday. And I think it's real appreciation for all that they've done. real sense of gratitude for the conscious devotion and the subtle little things that they did that they never talk about that were crucial in the husband and the child's welfare.
Beautiful to hear your insights today. Dr. Jeffrey B. Rubin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and have a happy Mother's Day.
And same to you.
Such sage advice, so timely. Love all the moms out there.
Great words, yes. I agree. All right, next, President Trump comes through for a boy battling cancer. A 15-year-old Alabama teen with stage 4 bone cancer has started what his family hopes will be a life-saving treatment in Southern California.
Yeah, this all unfolded after he had pleaded for help from the Trump administration in a video that went viral.
Roberts is fighting what he called... We are going to come right back to this, but Marco Rubio is speaking with the press right now. We're going to tune in. Stay with us.
Against the backdrop of the war in Iran. Did you make amends with the Pope yesterday?
No, we had a very good meeting. I mean, ultimately, it's important. First of all, there's a lot that we work together with the church, and we talked about those areas that we're working together on, different parts of the world. I know everyone's interested in, the other aspects of it, but I expressed, updated them on the situation with Iran, expressed our point of view about why this was an important, and the danger that Iran poses to the world, which is largely recognized. So obviously the Holy Father is a spiritual leader. He's the first and foremost. I mean, that's his role to play. And obviously the church has always interacted on behalf of a mission for peace and a respect for all of humanity. But at the end, it was a very cordial and important meeting, and it's important to share our points of view and an explanation and an understanding of where we're coming from. And I thought it was very positive.
Secretary Rubio, you also mentioned talking about the Western Hemisphere with the Pope. And of course, the Catholic Church is instrumental in delivering humanitarian aid to Cuba. I wondered if you discussed that and whether there was any disagreement on U.S. policy towards Cuba.
Oh, we discussed, I mean, we've provided $6 million of humanitarian aid, U.S. humanitarian aid that was distributed by Caritas, the Catholic Church agency. We're prepared to do more. In fact, we've offered the regime there $100 million of humanitarian aid that unfortunately so far they have not agreed to distribute to help the people of Cuba. So we did the hurricane relief, but we're offering more. And it's the regime that's not accepting it. It's the regime that's standing in the way of it. So we discussed that, and we hope we can do it because we do want to help the people of Cuba who are being, hurt by this incompetent regime that's destroyed the country and the economy.
Secretary, can I ask about the meeting with the Pope? I mean, after this meeting with the Pope, which you described as cordial and productive, are you going to recommend to the president that he stops criticizing the Pope in social media?
Why would I tell you what I'm going to recommend to the president? But beyond that, the president will always speak clearly about how he feels about the U.S. and U.S. policy. The president of the United States is always going to act in what's in the best interest of the United States. I think we can do that and continue to also have a very productive and fruitful and important relationship with the church because it plays an important role in the world as well.
Secretary, can you just talk about whether or not...
I called her, I'm sorry.
Secretary Rubio, were there any themes from your conversation yesterday with Pope Leo that resonated with you personally?
Well, if it was personal, what would I tell you? No, here's the bottom line on that is that the church is an important global institution. It has a presence all over the world. I know you guys are fixated on who said what about who at what time. I understand all that, okay? Because media, you guys have headlines, you have editors, you have people that want you to post, and these are interesting stories. But at the end of the day, the Pope just returned from Africa, right? A very important continent with growing Christian populations, many of whom are threatened or feel threatened by the spread of radical Islamic terrorism. So we care about that. The Pope and the church has an interest in Christian communities in Lebanon, a place that we're very involved in trying to establish a peace between Israel and Lebanon. The church obviously has a very important presence in Latin America. The bishops from Venezuela had just been here a few days earlier. So we shared thoughts about those sorts of things. I think it's an opportunity to personally express our point of view from the standpoint of foreign policy and the areas we're involved in and share insights, but also to gain insights because the church has a unique role in many of these countries in terms of the insights and information that they're receiving. In some cases in the past, the church has been an important interlocutor, not just with governments, but with societies. And then, of course, on the practical level, the church plays an important role in humanitarian efforts in different parts of the world, and in many places has served as a facilitator of U.S. humanitarian assistance, such as I highlighted a moment ago when it comes to Cuba. Yes, go ahead. I'll get to that. Go ahead.
Mr. Secretary, can you say in your meeting with Prime Minister Maloney whether you talked about the possibility of withdrawing U.S. troops from Italy as well as the possibility of the United States withdrawing from NATO altogether?
No, we didn't discuss any specifics like that, and that's a decision for the president to make. It's a decision every president makes. The fact of the matter, though, is, and I said, publicly, and I've said repeatedly, I've been a strong supporter of NATO throughout my career in the Senate and even now. And one of the advantages of being in NATO is that it allows us to have forces deployed in Europe and bases that allow us a logistical ability to project power in the case of contingencies. Well, we had a contingency. And some countries in Europe, like Spain as an example, denied us the use of those bases for a very important contingency that in some ways the denial of those bases actually impeded the mission, not severely, but had a cost and in fact even created some unnecessary dangers. So if one of the main reasons why the U.S. is in NATO is the ability to have forces deployed in Europe that we could project to other contingencies, and now that's no longer the case, at least when it comes to some NATO members, that's a problem and it has to be examined. But ultimately, that's a decision for the president to make. His team and people like myself and others will provide him what those potential options are, but ultimately he'll have to make that decision. He hasn't made those decisions yet. As far as recent news of deployments, like for example, those were all already ongoing. For example, in Germany, the troops that were withdrawn, which represent less than 14% of our total troop presence there, that's already pre-programmed. And in fact, all it did is take us back to where we were in 2022. So there was always a plan to do some shifting within NATO. As far as broader changes, I don't have an announcement for you on that today, but that's a decision for the president to make. Certainly, we'll present both options and perspectives, but I don't have anything new to announce on that today.
Yes, Mr. Secretary, your former colleagues on the Hill, Republican senators, believe that troops withdrawal will embolden Putin and will benefit Russia. Do you agree with that?
Will do what, I'm sorry?
Troops withdrawal will embolden Putin and benefit Russia. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, in the end, the United States the president is going to always do what's in the national interest. We have global obligations all over the world. We have troop deployments all over the world, and those are constantly shifting and changing. For example, we increased troop presence in NATO in the aftermath of the invasion of Ukraine. So we're always making these decisions, and there were some already previewed before any of this had happened in terms of the base denials. But in the end, look, here the bottom line is we always, while we may be the most powerful country in the world and we may have the most resources, our resources are not unlimited. We have to always assign resources around the world, including military resources, on the basis of what serves the national interest. That's a decision the president has to make, especially within the context of recent developments by some countries within NATO and the stance they've taken towards the United States. But, no decision's been made on that yet. That's something the president's still working through.
Have you managed to bridge differences on Iran, both with Rome and with Vatican?
Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody agrees that Iran having a nuclear weapon is unacceptable. I don't know of anyone who thinks it's a good idea for Iran to have a nuclear weapon except the Ayatollah. So I think the question is, what do you do about it? And the president's actually trying to do something about it. And so, I don't know. I don't think there's any disagreement that they can't have a nuclear weapon. I think the question is, what do you do about it? And, we've had every American president says, oh, they can't have a nuclear weapon. This is the first American president that's actually trying to do something concrete about it. I don't know who would disagree with that. It's an important thing that has to be confronted.
Can we talk to officials?
Can you give us an update on the status of negotiations with Iran?
Well, we should know something today. We're expecting a response from them. We'll see what the response entails. The hope is it's something that it can put us into a serious process of negotiation. Obviously, we've seen the reporting overnight that Iran has established or trying to establish some agency that's going to control traffic in the Straits. That would be very problematic. That would actually be unacceptable. The normalizing of their controlling of international waterways is both illegal and it's just something that's unacceptable. And the world has to start asking itself, what is it willing to do if Iran tries to normalize a control of an international waterway? I think that's unacceptable. But we're expecting a response from them today at some point. We have not received that yet, in the last hour, but perhaps that will come. Their system is still highly fractured and a bit dysfunctional as well. So that may be serving as an impediment. I hope it's a serious offer. I really do.
Can you confirm there's a resume of the talks between Israel and Lebanon next week? Do you expect that
talks. I don't know if we've set the exact date yet, but we expect that there'll be additional talks. Look, it's one of the areas that I think we can work with Italy on. They can play a very productive role and a constructive role in providing resources to the Lebanese government. In the end, we all share the same goal, and by all, I mean including the Lebanese government and the Israeli government, that we want the relations between Israel and Lebanon, its legitimate government, to be very strong. The impediment to that is Hezbollah. Again, an Iranian agent, Hezbollah, who is victimizing not just Israelis, but Hezbollah is also victimizing Lebanon. The reason why Lebanon faces bombings, the reason why Lebanon faces violence is because of Hezbollah. It is Hezbollah that's imposing this on them. So I think we all share the same goal, which is a strong Lebanese government that doesn't have an armed Hezbollah operating within its national territory, imposing a threat to any of its neighbors. And to do that, we have to empower and equip the Lebanese government to be able to confront that threat. And I think Italy and other countries, but Italy in particular, can play an important role in not just helping equip the government, but in cutting off the illicit financing that supports, helping them to cut off the financing that supports Hezbollah and the danger they pose.
Is it possible to get a peace deal on Lebanon without first solving the conflict with Iran? How linked are those two conflicts right now?
I mean, Hezbollah is an Iranian agent, 100%. I mean, Hezbollah wouldn't exist without Iran's support. So, but I think it's possible. I mean, Hezbollah's been both weakened, but still capable of inflicting damage and doing terroristic activities, as we've seen. So I think the way I would phrase it is, we're not going to negotiate with Iran over Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is a dangerous, other than if they're willing to stop funding them and supporting them. I think our negotiations with Lebanese, our role is with the Lebanese government. Lebanon should be governed by the Lebanese government. It should not have a terrorist group operating within its national territory that poses a threat both to its own people, including the Shia population, and to the government, and to Israel, and to its other neighbors. So that's what we're going to focus on.
Mr. Secretary, can we come back to Cuba a little bit? The United States, including yesterday, are ramping up sanctions against Cuba, the regime and all that. With the exchange with the Pope, did you feel any convergence of views on that and on the U.S. policy?
Let me clarify something for you. Our sanctions are against a company named Gaesa.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a holding company set up by generals in Cuba that has generated billions of dollars of revenue, none of which benefits the Cuban people. Not 1 cent of it benefits the Cuban people. You understand this, right? I don't know if you know this. There's the Cuban government, and they have a budget, and then there's this private company that has more money than the government does. None of the money in that company goes to build a single road, a single bridge, provide a single grain of rice to a single Cuban, other than the people that are part of Gaesa. So that's what we're sanctioning, is a company that basically is taking anything that makes money in Cuba and illegally putting it into the pockets of a few regime insiders. So that's not sanctions on the Cuban people, because the Cuban people don't benefit from Gaesa. It's a sanction against this company that is stealing from the Cuban people to the benefit of a few. And we didn't discuss those sanctions yesterday, but we imposed them yesterday, and we're going to be doing more, by the way.
Mr. Secretary, sorry. Many people thought that yours was a mission impossible after the Trump's attacks, heavy attacks.
Which mission? I'm sorry.
The visit.
Mission Impossible?
The mission, yes. What's your judgment at the end of the visit? Mission accomplished?
We work with the Vatican on a lot of things. Our relationship between, for example, our mission here in the Vatican, like I told you, I mean, we're working together on humanitarian issues. We're focused on other issues as well. The president's perspective is clear. He thinks that Iran is a threat and it needs to be addressed. And that position remains unchanged. And I think we're capable of having that position and expressing that position clearly, and also working cooperatively, and as we have for centuries, as we have for decades, with the Vatican and with the Catholic Church, who has a global presence.
Did you explicitly ask the Pope to stop his criticism of the Iran war?
I'm not going to discuss what I talk about the Pope, but I'm not going to ask him. That's not the purpose of I told you guys before I even came here. And that is that we have a very strong relationship with the Vatican. We work with them on a lot of things around the world. This was a trip that had been planned even before all these things had happened. So why just as an example, why would I not want to hear the perspectives of the most important, in many cases, far-reaching, religious leader in the world, on his perspectives about what he saw on his trip to Africa, or what his bishops and others and agencies are hearing in the Western Hemisphere, or the plight of Christians in Africa, but also those in Lebanon, a place that, so of course we're going to engage with them on these things. That was the purpose of our meeting, and in that realm it was very, very productive, and it was a good meeting because we were able to talk about these different areas of the world where they have a presence, where they are engaged, and we are as well, and of course find opportunities to either continue cooperating where that already exists, like in Cuba, or expand our cooperation in other places where it makes sense.
Is it fair to expect a phone call between the president and the Pope anytime soon?
I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it could happen.
Mr. May I ask you about Iran, if possible? You declared that Operation Epic Fury was over. Now, given all these military actions that we're seeing on the ground, what does over mean militarily?
No. Operation Epic Fury was an offensive operation designed to destroy their missile launches, their Navy, their Air Force, and it achieved that, and their factories, and it achieved that. What you saw yesterday was U.S. destroyers moving through international waters being fired upon by the Iranians, and the U.S. responded defensively to protect itself. That's what you saw. I mean, that's separate and distinct from Operation Epic Fury. If you fire a drone or a missile at our destroyer, what are we supposed to do? Let it hit it? We have to respond to it. We have to knock down the missile, and we have to knock out whatever it is that launched that missile. The alternative is to let it sink one of our ships. That's crazy. So, of course, we responded to it.
Well, yes, but the point is, if there's not much seizing in the firing, because we've
well, you
seen
should ask that of the
attacks.
Iranians. Don't ask me. We didn't fire. They fired on us. My point is, if you fire at a U.S. Navy ship, what are we supposed to do? Say, oh, there's a ceasefire. We're not going to shoot down your drone. That's a stupid question. That's a stupid position to take. Of course we fired back at them. They were shooting at us. That's what I would expect to do. Only stupid countries don't shoot back when you're shot at, and we're not a stupid country.
Do you expect that or have you conveyed any red lines to Iran where, if the ceasefire or whatever you call it, if they cross
Well, the red line is clear.
lines,
If they threaten Americans, they're going to get blown up. I mean, that's how much clearer can you be than that? If you are a missile launching guy, whatever they call that job, and you're sitting there and you fire a missile at the United States and we saw you fire it, we're going to hit you. Of course we are. Who doesn't do that? Unless you want to get your ship sunk. I mean, we're not going to let our ships get sunk by the Iranians with their little, their drones that they're firing. They don't have a navy anymore, but they bring out these little Boston whaler fishing boats and they try to swarm you. We're going to blow those boats up if they're coming towards our boats. I don't know if that's a red line, but I hope they know it is by now. So if I were one of these Iranians on a fast boat and they tell you, hey, your mission is to go after a U.S. destroyer, you're probably not going to survive. I think that's a red line.
Can I go back to European reaction?
Does anybody have any questions? This guy's like a monopoly over here.
Yes. The president has expressed disappointment in support or lack thereof in Europe. Was there any discussion today in your meeting with Prime Minister Meloni or Foreign Minister Tahani about them providing escorts in the Strait of Hormuz?
No, we didn't get to that level of specificity about what they... Here's the bottom line, okay? Everybody says Iran is a threat. Everybody says that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Okay. But you got to do something about it. The president's trying to do something about it. And I don't understand why anybody would not be supportive of that. And he doesn't understand, and rightfully so, somebody would be supportive of that. But here's a more fundamental problem. Iran now claims that they have a right to control an international waterway. They claim that they have a right to control it. What is the world going to do about that? Is the world going to accept that Iran now controls an international waterway? Because if the world is prepared to accept that, then be ready. Because there's like 10 other countries that are going to start doing the same thing in their international waterways, or in international waterways near their countries. That's an unacceptable thing that they're trying to normalize. So if the answer is no, we don't think Iran should be able to control the Straits of Hormuz, then the next question is going to be for everyone, well, what are you going to do about it? What is the world prepared to do about it? And we're trying to do something about it diplomatically. We have a resolution at the United Nations that we're trying to move forward, in which the world and the UN will have an opportunity through the Security Council to vote and say, we are not going to allow them to mine the straits. We're not going to allow them to try to control the straits. And by the way, you have a bunch of humanitarian aid that's trapped inside the Persian Gulf and needs to be released and has not been able to move. We're going to give the world a chance to pronounce itself on it. And if Russia or China or some other country decide to veto it, then you know what the impediment is. But the fundamental question every country, not Italy, every country needs to ask themselves is, are you going to normalize a country claiming to control an international waterway? Because if you normalize that, you've set a precedent that's going to get repeated in a dozen other places. And if the answer is no, we don't want to normalize it, then you better have something more than just strongly worded statements to back it up. And that's the point I've made in all of my visits, not just here. I didn't come to Italy just to make that point. I would say that to any country that complains about the straits. because that's what we potentially are facing unless we get a good deal from the Iranians, and we're waiting to hear that today.
Mr. Secretary, can I move to Taiwan, actually? I'm sorry to geographically go around the world. Okay. Parliament just approved a pretty big, massive defense bill today or last night. There was a little bit less than what the president of Taiwan was asking for, but nonetheless, it's a big bill, including money to buy U.S. arms. What is your reaction to that, if any, and specifically in the context of the trip you will be doing with the president next week in China?
Well, all I would say in context of the trip next week in Taiwan in specific is the United States, our policy remains unchanged. You know, we don't want to see any forced or compelled change in the situation now. We think it would be destabilizing to the world. It's our position on that has been, you know, we've heard obviously the Chinese position, but we've made our position on that clear as well. And I imagine that will be discussed in the trip, but I don't think it'll be a feature of our trip, but it'll certainly be an item that's discussed. We think it's to the benefit of China, the United States, and the world writ large that there be stability in the straits there, and that continues to be our position. That's the one we'll continue to stand by and advocate for. All right, I have time for one more. We got to leave.
About Ukraine before you go. Yeah. You spoke with Lavrov recently, and you know they targeted kindergarten in Ukraine even after they advocated for ceasefire. Where does the negotiations
well,
stand?
Right now, the negotiations aren't. We've tried to play a mediator role in that. So far, it has not led to a fruitful outcome for a variety of reasons. We remain prepared to play that role if it can be productive. We don't want to waste our time and invest time and energy into an effort that's not moving forward. But if we see an opportunity to act as a mediator that brings both sides closer to a peace deal, we'd like to see it. Our position at the end of the day is that this war is a tragedy. Both sides are paying a very heavy price for it, both economic and obviously at a human level. It's destructive, we're against it, and anytime you tell me about strikes and people, or every time I hear about these things, it just reminds us of why this war needs to end. And while we're prepared to play whatever role we can to bring it to a peaceful diplomatic resolution, unfortunately, you know, right now those efforts have stagnated, but we always stand ready if those circumstances change.
Can I just
okay,
ask
guys,
one on
yeah,
Africa?
and then I got to go, and I apologize.
One on Africa. I mean, the president committed last year to personally intervening to help try to end the war in Sudan. Mm-hmm. The Pope, in one of his addresses, called this one of the world's greatest tragedies. Did this come up at all in your discussions, and do you see any movement?
Well, we discussed Africa broadly, and of course Sudan being an incredible tragedy. We've been heavily engaged through that Quad process. Obviously, Sudan has become in some ways sort of a proxy engagement between multiple countries who are behind some of the elements that are fighting. There are other countries that are not directly involved but have allowed their national territories to be used as a way to ship weaponry. We recently had a pretty positive announcement for the first time on a statement of principles, but we have to give it some action. What we've really been focused on in Sudan is sort of establishing a humanitarian ceasefire that allows us to provide aid to people that are suffering tremendously there, but not doing so at the expense of a broader deal. So we do want the humanitarian ceasefire where we can identify a number of communities that are safe havens for the distribution of humanitarian aid for what is one of the world's worst humanitarian crises ever. But you can't do that unless you have the security to be able to provide the aid. But we don't want that to be the final outcome. In addition to the humanitarian corridors and the humanitarian sites, we need to bring this conflict to an end. And the way to bring this conflict to an end is for the countries and the parties who are supporting the fighting elements to force these elements toward a peace deal that ends this conflict. And as I said, we've been very involved in that Quad process, invested a lot of time in it, continue to be engaged on a daily basis, and in fact have people in our bureau in Africa, as well as our special envoy, Saad Boulos, involved almost daily on this topic. So, okay guys, I got to run. I apologize.
Were you surprised by your...
There you have it, Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Rome.
That's right. He's concluding his visit. Today he met with the President, Giorgia Meloni, and yesterday he met with Pope Leo. He took a variety of questions from the press on things. They were clearly looking for any beef between the President and the Pope, but he expressed the opposite, that there's a lot of shared goals with the Church, and that the Church having its influence all around the world, fighting Islamic terror and the threat to Christians, something that they want to work on together. The Pope having returned from Africa, he had been asked about Sudan. He also asked about humanitarian aid in Cuba as well, and of course the Iran war and how that might conclude.
Much to talk about.
That's right.
And ahead, the U.S. military striking Iranian military facilities responsible for launching what it calls unprovoked attacks against U.S. warships in the Strait of Hormuz.
President Trump says the ceasefire still holds, but again, delivers a stern warning. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent, Iris Tao. Good morning, Iris. What's the latest coming out of D.C.?
Good morning to both of you as well. The U.S. and Iran again exchanged fire, now for a second time this week. Central Command announcing that Iran used missiles, drones, as well as small boats to attack 3 U.S. destroyers transiting the Strait of Hormuz. In self-defense, Central Command says the U.S. not only struck the attack boats used by Iran in that strait, but also struck targets inside Iran responsible for the attack, including missile and drone launch sites, as well as command centers and intelligence nodes. It marks the first time that the U.S. struck targets inside Iran since a ceasefire began just a month ago, now exactly a month. And President Trump, meanwhile, making clear that a ceasefire still holds, calling the U.S. response just a love tap. But he's also delivering another stern warning to Iran. Watch.
After these strikes, is the ceasefire with Iran still on?
Yeah, it is. It's they trifled with us today. We blew them away. They trifled. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire. You won't have to know. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran. And they better sign their agreement fast.
Iran has now attacked the U.S. 11 times, more than 11 times, since the beginning of the ceasefire. President Trump on Truth Social saying that the latest attack on U.S. destroyers shows that Iran is, quote, led by lunatics, and if they had the chance to use a nuclear weapon, they would do it without question, but they'll never have that opportunity. Iran is now reviewing a latest U.S. proposal to end the war, and President Trump yesterday saying that he believes that Iran wants a deal more than the U.S. does, but also noting the fact that Iran has been going back and forth when it comes to this agreement because of its disjointed leadership. Watch.
It's an offer that's basically said they will not have nuclear weapons. They're going to hand us the nuclear dust and many other things that we want. Yeah, they agree, but when they agree, it doesn't mean much because the next day they forgot they agreed. And, you know, we're dealing with different sets of leaders.
And in a new development, it is now confirmed that a Chinese-owned ship was attacked by Iran this past Monday. And that's despite China for years propping up the Iranian regime by buying about 90% of its oil and also helping it evade U.S. sanctions. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Mike Waltz noting the irony, if not the embarrassment to the Chinese regime by posting, quote, confirmed Chinese-owned ship struck by Iran in the Strait of Hormuz with friends like these. Officials say that President Trump will bring up China's purchases of Iranian oil during his visit to China next week. Back to you.
All right, thanks for the update, NTD White House correspondent Iris Tao.
And next week, President Trump heads to Beijing for a meeting with Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping. To dive into the long-delayed trip, I spoke with David Zhang. He's host of David on China on YouTube. I asked him how this trip could affect the Iran war and vice versa.
I think the prior meeting that happened before this trip with President Trump was meeting with Iran's foreign minister. And you see in the readout from the China-Iran meetings that it was clear that China's bottom line is supporting Iran's nuclear enrichment. So this is, I believe, a fundamental sort of understanding of what the CCP wants in the region, which is to have Iran continue to be a sort of a distractor / chaotic factor for the CCP. But also at the same time, we're not seeing any indication that it is trying to reduce the amount of support. Obviously, with President Trump visiting, they're going to start to show some signs of, let's say, we're not going to physically send ships with weaponry into Iran, but they're still going to be economically supporting Iran as we speak, and I think continue to do so. But maybe in the temporary sort of few weeks or even a month ahead that they will sort of calm down a bit. But in the long term, they want Iran to continue to be China's proxy in the Middle East.
And then how does the naval blockade affect China's benefit on this discounted sanctioned oil with Iran and thus the tension with the U.S.?
Well, it does matter to China to see the Strait of Hormuz open up again. I think China fundamentally wants to get to a place, or the CCP, where the strait is open, but Iran continues to enrich uranium. But at the same time, China does have a sort of a large reserve of storage of oil, so they can last a while if it really comes down to the dire situation, as they've been preparing for the Taiwan invasion. But over the long term, the price of especially the manufacturing and export sector is going to skyrocket, and that's no good. So I think China wants to find some sort of a common ground in this visit from the president and see if they can somehow get to a place where they can get the flow of oil back.
Now let's shift over to China's internal dynamics, and let's talk about human rights for a moment. President Trump said he will raise the plight of Hong Kong publisher Jimmy Lai. Some observers have said that human rights abuses, such as forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong and Uyghurs, it's so egregious that it actually represents the legitimacy of the CCP itself. It could actually be their Achilles heel. Because the crime is so heinous and the scale is so industrialized. Where does human rights fit into the agenda with Trump?
Yeah, as the Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in the press conference 2 days ago, that it is a crucial issue for the administration. I think the key here is to understand what the CCP uses human rights as a sort of a bargaining chip for. It's that in recent administrations before the Trump administration, there's been a lot of discussion to raise human rights issues in these meetings, and I'm sure the Trump administration also does. But they always have this fundamental bottom line, the CCP, that is to say that if you want us to fundamentally get anything done, don't talk and criticize our record on human rights or try to stop us from doing what you accuse us of doing. This is because a lot of the CCP's internal sort of officials' promotion and rise to power came with persecution of Falun Gong, persecution of Uyghurs, and even just in general creating these apparatus such as the censorship and the firewall of censorship and other sort of censorship apparatuses. They came up with this to get power, that they had to be involved in these. So it's almost like they have this blood tie to these persecutions and human rights violations. And you mentioned Jimmy Lai, the idea of stamping out press freedom in Hong Kong is an achievement to certain CCP officials, and that's how they maintain influence and power within the party. So for them to give that up, you can imagine how hard that would be. But I do think that the Trump administration still has the key here. It is that I think Xi Jinping personally wants the president to back him up in this internal power struggle that's happening in the party right now.
So much at stake, and the casual Western observer would not know any of that. We appreciate you breaking it down. David Zhang, you can watch David on YouTube, David on China. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Up ahead, the Trump administration is responding to the deadly hantavirus outbreak aboard a cruise ship carrying American passengers. U.S. officials preparing a return flight for passengers and monitoring possible exposures.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Tired of struggling with that heavy leaf blower? Introducing the Bullseye Power Blower. It delivers a massive blowing force, and yet it's so compact and lightweight. Just lock and load the rechargeable battery for long-lasting runtime. The secret is the compact turbocharged motor with jet burst technology that blasts out 21,000 RPMs of airflow. Watch this. The sheer force propels this woman across the pool. Look, use Bullseye to blow up a huge jump house. Now that's power. Even blows snow right off your vehicle in no time. Turbo clean your porch in a flash or tidy up your dirty garage floor in seconds. Get it today for just $99.99. But wait, act now and get a $20 discount. So it's only $79.99. Plus, you'll get the adjustable extension tube. Yours free. And it all comes with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-209-2313 or go to bullseyeblower.com. That's 1-800-209-2313 or order online at bullseyeblower.com. Order now.
Welcome back. The U.S. is now monitoring American passengers tied to that deadly hantavirus outbreak aboard a luxury cruise ship in the Atlantic.
President Trump says he's been briefed on the situation. Here's more.
An international effort is now underway to contain the deadly hantavirus outbreak tied to the cruise ship MV Hondias. Countries are working to repatriate passengers and track possible exposures. President Trump says he has now been briefed on the outbreak and says officials are studying the situation closely.
It's very much, we hope, under control. It was the ship, and I think we're going to make a full report about it tomorrow. We have a lot of people, a lot of great people studying it. It should be fine. We hope.
The World Health Organization says 5 people are confirmed to have contracted the virus, with 3 additional suspected cases linked to the ship. 3 people have died in the outbreak, including a Dutch couple and a German national. Health officials continue stressing the overall public risk remains low. Spain says passengers arriving in the Canary Islands this weekend will not leave the ship until the plane that will take them to their destination countries is ready.
They will arrive in an area that is completely isolated and cordoned off. They will board vehicles that are isolated and guarded and will arrive at an area of the airport that will be completely isolated. They will board the planes and leave.
Spanish officials say the United States has agreed to send a dedicated plane to repatriate 17 Americans aboard the ship. Spain says British officials are also working toward a repatriation flight for passengers from the UK. Meanwhile, health departments in Virginia and Texas say they are monitoring residents who recently disembarked from the ship, though none are reporting symptoms. An Oregon doctor who treated sick passengers aboard the vessel says several patients became seriously ill in a short period of time.
Over 12 to 24 hours, it became clear that there were a number of people sick and that they were getting sicker. And the fear with hantavirus is you can go from seriously ill to critically ill very, very quickly.
State officials say a small number of additional Virginia residents who were probably exposed could be identified in the coming days.
And a federal trade court has struck down President Trump's 10% global tariffs imposed earlier this year.
The 3-judge panel ruling 2-1 that the administration exceeded its authority when imposing the tariffs without congressional approval.
The court also issuing a permanent injunction blocking the government from collecting the duties from Washington state and 2 companies that brought the lawsuit.
Judges say the administration failed to identify the specific economic conditions required under the law to justify the import tariffs.
The tariffs under the Trade Act of 1974 took effect in February after the Supreme Court struck down separate tariffs imposed under emergency powers.
The Trump administration is expected to appeal the ruling, and it could move to replace these tariffs with other financial instruments.
Just 1 week before a high-stakes visit to China, Washington is warning it will restrict Chinese visas if it doesn't take back its deported nationals living illegally in the U.S.
The move comes only days before President Trump's scheduled trip to Beijing. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more.
The Trump administration's preparing to start sanctioning visas from China. It's over Beijing slowing its acceptance of deported nationals. This information was first made known by Reuters, but later confirmed by a State Department official to our sister media, the Epoch Times. The official said on condition of remaining anonymous, quote, inaction by the Chinese government will jeopardize future travel for law-abiding Chinese citizens. If these visa restrictions do go in place, it's unclear who will be the target exactly. The official also said that China refuses to fully cooperate with the U.S. to take back its citizens, calling it a breach of Beijing's international obligations and responsibilities. And the issue is expected to be discussed during President Trump's trip to China next week, where he'll meet with CCP leader Xi Jinping. Now, in early 2025, China accepted around 3,000 deported nationals from the U.S., but that has since slowed. The U.S. official says that over 100,000 Chinese immigrants are in the U.S. illegally. Over 30,000 face final removal orders, and of those, over 1,500 are detained and awaiting deportation, many linked to other criminal cases. Now, this isn't the first time the Trump administration has sanctioned visas over these issues. South Sudan, Laos, and Venezuela all faced visa restrictions for refusing to accept their deportees. During the Biden administration, the illegal crossings through the southern border rose to unprecedented levels.
At this pace, the full fiscal year will see encounters of illegal Chinese immigrants 2,300% higher than the rate just 2 years ago. That there is a serious national security concern, and we should be looking closely at individuals coming from communist China, the United States' greatest adversary on the world stage.
Reducing illegal immigration has remained a core tenet for President Trump after returning to the White House, including visa revocations and stricter vetting on immigration. Reporting by Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thank you, Jack. And Tennessee, the latest state to take action in the nationwide redistricting battle.
State lawmakers and the governor swiftly approved a map that breaks up the state's only Democrat majority voting district. Protests erupted inside the state capitol, and NTD's Melina Weisskopf has that story.
The sole Democrat-held seat and only black majority voting congressional district in Tennessee eliminated. It's Congressman Steve Cohen's Memphis-based district.
The maps were drawn to maximize the potential Republican partisan advantage by winning and having a chance and opportunity to win all 9 congressional districts for the Republican Party.
Protests erupted inside of the state capitol during the special session. Governor Bill Lee signed the new map yesterday after swift action from the Republican-controlled House and Senate. It comes after the Supreme Court ruled that congressional districts must not be based on race, though opposing Democrats aren't convinced.
How can we sit here and say that this is not about race when nearly half of the black people in the state of Tennessee live in that corner of Tennessee that you are deciding to carve into 3 different congressional race spaces when right now there's only one.
Republicans say the new map is a historic opportunity to maximize the conservative representation of Tennessee. The lieutenant governor calling it a fair and legal congressional map that reflects the long-standing conservative character of Tennessee.
For the first time in history, to have an all-Republican delegation sent from Tennessee to Washington, D.C. to represent conservative values, to represent conservative principles.
Democrats have launched an effort to counter Republican gains in several states. The party this week just launched a campaign to weaken Republican seats in New York. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
A flag-raising ceremony in Canada draws attention from an unusual source. Turning now to Amsterdam, just across the river from Detroit, where the mayor says he received a warning from China's consulate.
The mayor says the message warned him to stop supporting the spiritual practice of Falun Dafa. He turned that message over to the police, and he says it's the first time a foreign power tried to stop him from saying what he believes is true. Here's more on that.
I, Michael Prue, Mayor, on behalf of the town of Amherstburg, do hereby proclaim May 13th, 2026, Falun Dafa Day in the town of Amherstburg.
Falun Dafa, also known as Falun Gong, is a spiritual discipline based on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. May 13 marks the day the practice was first introduced to the public in China in 1992. and it was Amherstburg's 5th flag raising in 5 years.
We wish you a very solid month. I hope you can take your message across this beautiful country and make sure that people understand that your cause is just, your organization is wonderful, and you are helping and serving so many people. Congratulations.
Prue then shared something more. He said a letter arrived after last year's flag-raising ceremony, claiming to be from the Chinese consulate in Toronto. The Chinese Communist Party has persecuted Falun Dafa since 1999, and Beijing has been documented pressuring foreign officials who speak out in support of the practice.
I got a letter purportedly from the embassy in Toronto of the Chinese government warning me to stop supporting Falun Dafa. I have never been told by a foreign authority or anyone in Canada to stop saying what I believe is true. This was the first time. I was taken aback and I was a little angry. We phoned the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and they came and they took the letter.
But Prue didn't back down. He said the entire town council stood behind the proclamation.
Maybe I'll get another letter, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that you are here. What matters is that you are listened to. What matters is that your cause is just. And we will continue to support you going forward. I am proud to say that our council unanimously supported reading the proclamation, raising the flag.
Prue has spoken out against the persecution for nearly 3 decades.
For 27 years, I have stated my hope that one day the Chinese government will come to its senses and recognize what a wonderful organization Falun Dafa is and will stop the persecution. For 27 years, I guess they haven't heard me. I would continue to support your organization and the freedom that Falun Dafa brings to many people around the world.
NTD News, Toronto, Canada.
And as World Falun Dafa Day approaches, New York City is once again preparing for its annual Grand Parade, bringing lots of color, dragons, lion dancers, and more, as well as a message of hope and celebration.
Don't miss NTD's special coverage of the World Falun Dafa Day Parade next Wednesday on May 13th. It starts at 10:30 Eastern. It's going to be hosted by our very own Stefania Cox and yours truly, Carrie Dunst. It'll be only here on NTD. Make sure to tune in next Wednesday.
Coming up, real financial health is not about looking wealthy. It's about strong cash flow, solid savings, and the ability to handle life setbacks without everything falling apart. We'll have an expert give us advice after this.
When it comes to disasters and emergencies, it's not a matter of if, but when.
I'm relying on luck, but who knows if it'll be on my side.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Take control at ready.gov/olderadults.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains unmoved.
I think building kindness in children from a very young age is foundational to their growth, to building their character, to allow them to share with each other in a classroom and in a space that is safe, like in the Ganjin World platform.
I'm a New York State certified teacher. Currently, I teach in a public school in upstate New York. And I'm also a Ganjin World Campus channel creator.
I've been fortunate to use Ganjin World's Teachers Premium channel for the past 3 years, and it's been shaping my curriculum and teaching both in the classroom setting and in our home school.
If children can learn to support each other from a very young age and encourage each other and help, it'll only strengthen the future of our society.
You can just assure yourself everything on Ganjin campus, on Ganjin World, it will be safe, it will be clean.
Sparked many positive changes in our students.
Ganjing Campus equips educators worldwide with powerful Teachers Premium channels and high-quality learning resources to help children learn and grow safely online. When you support one teacher, Ganjing World matches your support to help another. Support Ganjing Campus. Scan to learn more.
Just in this morning, the Trump administration is releasing a new batch of previously classified files documenting UFOs. It's part of a new federal transparency initiative called Pursue.
The effort involves multiple agencies, including the Pentagon, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, NASA, as well as the FBI, all of them releasing these files. They're now available on war.gov/UFO.
Officials say the release of files is part of President Trump's push for what the administration calls maximum transparency on unexplained aerial encounters. More documents, videos, and photos are expected to be released on a rolling basis. And the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics released their latest jobs report this morning, reporting the unemployment rate staying constant at 4.3%.
The U.S. saw job gains in healthcare, transportation, and warehousing and retail trade, with the Bureau reporting an additional 115,000 jobs last month.
Next, only about 63% of Americans say they could handle a $400 emergency, which says a lot about where people are at in terms of living closer to the edge than perhaps they think.
That's right. And here to offer some advice in that situation is certified financial planner Lawrence Sprung.
Good to have you with us today, Lawrence. That's quite a stark statistic there, and I think a lot of people in that sense must be feeling like they're doing financially okay, but not realizing that they're putting themselves at risk if they don't have some way to manage extra costs that come in. What's the best way for someone to tell if they're financially healthy?
Yeah, so I mean, you can be very simplistic about it, right? And look at your bank accounts at the end of the month. You have money coming in, money going out. If your bank accounts are increasing over time, then that's typically a good sign that you are underspending versus your income. But if you are not, if you're staying the same or actually going down in those bank accounts, that's a sign that you are outspending what is actually being brought in. And cash flow happens to be one of the biggest indicators and best financial indicators of success.
Now let's talk about this $400 statistic. Is that still a thing today, or are many Americans still in a position where they couldn't weather a $400 unexpected issue or emergency?
Yeah, so according to that study, 37% of people today, if they got an unexpected $400 or greater bill, which, think about it, that could be 2 new tires. That could be a repair on the car. It doesn't have to be this major expense, and that would put them in a financially difficult situation. So we have to improve that, and we want to get that to a place where not only people can withstand that, but even withstand greater, expenses if they should arise.
And we talk about cash flow, but plenty of people may be earning a good income and yet still not have much at the end of the month. What can they do in that instance to really break it down and make it work for them?
Yeah, so they're not alone. It impacts every income range. I think I saw a statistic online the other day that the average person who makes like $400,000 to $500,000, large salaries, are not saving anything at the end of the month. So what happens is you have this lifestyle creep, right? As people, whether you're on the lower end of the income scale or the higher end, people have a tendency to live up to those means and forget about saving. So you have to be intentional about it, and you have to figure out a game plan so as that income comes in, you know exactly where that's going, whether it's bills, whether it's savings. You have to set up that game plan in advance so that you don't end up in that 37%, because even people with high incomes, when you're talking about 37% of people not being able to afford that, that's not just people on the lower end of the income scale, that's the higher end, and you're like, they should be able to afford it, but in many cases, they can't either.
Well, in terms of that, it sounds like the goal then is this security that comes from having margin, having that emergency fund. If people are in that sort of hamster wheel that you just described, where they're maybe living up or they're not intentional enough. What are a couple of real simple things that they can do to try to right the ship?
Yeah, so the important thing is maybe for a month, track where all your expenses are going, right? You don't have to make it this big overarching anxiety-driven exercise. Just for a month, track all your expenses. And then at the end of the month, don't do it in the middle of the month as you're doing it. At the end of the month, look at them and say, are these expenses that are a must pay or are they not a must pay? And then are these things that are bringing joy to my life? You know, think about it. We're in a subscription-filled environment. People are, ending up with subscriptions they don't even know they have. So comb through them, eliminate them, and see how that impacts it. And then over the next month, as you eliminate them, see how that impacts cash flow. And then maybe every 3 to 6 months, do that exercise just to get yourself in a habit of analyzing where your money's going so you're not losing track of it. Because it's so easy. We're not paper money. There's no checks. Everything's electronic payments now.
Yeah. It's too easy to spend money.
Banks love it.
So true. And what role, so we're looking at, you're doing your budget, thinking about savings goals and what you might be able to achieve with that. But alongside all of that, of course, within this, you need some kind of emergency fund to really set yourself up for some kind of unexpected expenses. What do you recommend there?
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to be better than average, right, all you need is $400 or more, and you're in that 63%. So if you think about it, it's not a big number, right?
Yeah.
It's not a big number. I don't know that that's going to solve your problem, but start there, right? Start there. Work to get $400 set aside in an emergency fund and get to that level. And then maybe work towards getting $800. And then at that, instead of, we talk about having 3 to 6 months in this emergency fund, and people might get overwhelmed and say, how am I going to get $30, $40, $50,000 or whatever the number is in this emergency fund? And then what they do is they throw in the towel and they say, I'll worry about this another time. So listen, get above average, get the $400 set aside, assuming you could do that more quickly than not, then work towards another $400 and keep chipping away and treat it like an emergency fund so that if you have one of those events, the money's there. The emergency fund isn't, I want to take the family to Disney, let me dip into the emergency fund. That should come out of your regular cash flow and not touch your emergency fund.
And for a lot of families, they're moving into a time of the year where a monthly budget doesn't really help them because they have these big annual expenses. Maybe it's a summer camp or it's a family vacation, and then you come right into the fall with all of the sports commitments, and then before you know it, you're at the holidays. So how do you help families not just get on the monthly track, but be able to plan for some of those larger expenses that really, in hindsight, those become some of the memories that families look back on. So they don't want to skimp on that, but it's very hard to then afford those if they're in a monthly construct with managing their finances.
Yeah. And you don't want to skimp on those, assuming that they fit in your budget, they fit in your cash flow. Those are things that will stick with you for the rest of your days. So you want to enjoy those things. The important thing is be very mindful about it. As you approach the year, we talk about monthly budget, but if you're going to have that big expense that you know of, and the trip's going to be $5,000, and you're incorporating that in a monthly budget, set up a separate account, right? That's called travel. Name it travel. And then start putting that money in there so when you go on the trip, it's available. And, there's empirical evidence around if you name a bank account with your goal, you are more likely to save towards that goal and less likely to use that money for something else. So be mindful of it for those big expenses, those memories that you want to set up. Create the bank account, name it what you want to name it so that you'll be more inclined not to touch it, and start putting that money away on a monthly basis so when that expense comes, it's there and ready for you.
And talking about lifestyle creep, for the things that you can cut out, it can be actually really hard to do. There are lots of reasons that people experience lifestyle creep. So just in our last 30 seconds, what's 1 or 2 key things people can do to really help them be happy with cutting down their expenses?
Well, you have to look at those lifestyle creep things and say, hey, is this really bringing me joy, or am I doing this to keep up with the proverbial Joneses? And if it's that, get rid of it. Get rid of it. There's no reason to do that. Don't let that lifestyle creep come in. Be in control of it. Have a budget, have the emergency fund, and set yourself up for success.
All about being intentional. Love it. Thank you so much, Lawrence Spring, Midland Financial. Great to speak with you again. And President Trump comes through for a boy battling cancer. A 15-year-old Alabama teen with stage 4 bone cancer has started what his family hopes will be a life-saving treatment in Southern California.
Yeah, it all unfolded after he pleaded for help from the Trump administration in a video that went viral.
Roberts is fighting what he called very deadly and very hard to treat bone cancer. It has spread all over his body since January 2025. Roberts asked those watching to please share the video with President Trump and Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He said his mom found a drug that could possibly save his life if they can get it in time, adding that the cancer was all over his body, including his liver.
Kennedy says the video reached the right people in time, and he got in touch with the Sarcoma Oncology Center in Santa Monica, California. President Trump was able to fly the Roberts family out immediately, and they started treatment on May 5th. Roberts began receiving doses of the experimental drug Deltra-X-G this week.
Oh, what a beautiful story to end the show. Just very touching, and there's goodness all around. That's the message I'm getting.
Yeah, what a great way to end the week on a Friday with that beautiful story of RFK and President Trump coming through for that family. So we do have to end the show here, but if you have any feedback or if you have a story like that one, we want to know about it. So please send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com.
For round-the-clock original news coverage, you can always watch us live at ntd.com/TV or download our NTD app. I'm Stephanie Cox.
I'm Carrie Dunst. Have a great weekend.
Getting prescription glasses from Select Specs is easier than you might think. Select your frames from our £6 range in-house brands or our extensive designer collections. Then enter, upload or email your latest prescription and our website will analyze it and help you select.